Alrighty, what's up everybody? So I was just listening to a video, I think the channel was Clear Value Tax, and he was talking about the housing market and how it is for buyers, well, sellers and buyers, and how it is for renters. And the prediction pretty much is that, you know, as we know, everything is just going to get worse. But this kind of prompted me to come on here and, you know, fill you guys in on Airbnb if you're not already aware. So I just thought I would just give my own little rant, my little FYI regarding Airbnb. So, of course, now that I'm recording, the building is making ridiculous noises. So I spent the last 3 weeks at 2 different Airbnbs. And, you know, there's pros and cons to everything in life. There's a trade-off for everything, you know. The good thing is that I didn't deal with any bed bugs or roaches, you know. So the first place that I stayed at was actually a camper, and that was a whole new experience. And, you know, most Airbnbs aren't going to be a camper. But, I mean, that had its own list of stuff in and of itself. And then the last 2 weeks, I just rented a bedroom with a detached bathroom. Excuse me. And it was I think it was like the cheapest one that met my needs in the whole state. Now this guy had a nice house, like right on the edge of the countryside. On the like basement level, he had like a whole separate apartment. He was renting that through Airbnb. He had the room that I was in that he was renting, and then he had a room upstairs with an attached bathroom that he was renting, okay? And the guy before that, the guy that I was renting the camper from, he had the camper he was renting. He had a space down on his basement level that I guess had like a kitchenette in it that he was renting on Airbnb. And apparently he also had a campsite space out in the woods on his property that he was renting through Airbnb. And I think he was also planning on, once he fixed it up, he was going to rent out his like master bedroom in his house through Airbnb. And he flat out told me, you know, like his goal was to get to the point where he doesn't have to work anymore and just live off of Airbnb. And that seems to be the mentality of these hosts because, again, let's go back to the second place I stayed the last 2 weeks. That guy was renting 3 different spaces in his house. So that seems to be the mentality of these Airbnb hosts, is that they want to get as much profit, as much revenue as possible. And here's what's aggravating to me, for you know, just for the average American or renter, human being, right? You know, these were nice spaces that could be rented long term, you know, on a month-to-month basis or a 6-month lease or a year lease or something like that. And instead of them being available for people to rent, to actually live in as a home, they're being rented through Airbnb by the night. And that enables them to charge higher prices that are comparable to motels, hotels, and so forth. Now, even though the place I just stayed at for the last 2 weeks was the cheapest in the state that met my needs, that wasn't a camper, after the taxes, the fees, etc., because that's something else with Airbnb, right? So you have the quote-unquote price per night, but then they tack on all these other fees. There's a service fee, there's a cleaning fee, there's a pet fee, and they may not even list the pet fee out like separately, itemized, because apparently I figured out that they know that people don't like that, and so they'll just kind of like work it in secretly, like behind the scenes. But yeah, they have all these fees and yada 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 that they end up tacking on top of whatever the nightly rate is, of course. So yeah, the place I was just at the last 2 weeks, it was a nice house, you know, I mean, like, technically, if you really examined everything, what he did was he bought this house, and he filled it up with, like, furniture that he got from, like, a secondhand store. Like, the kitchen table chair like the arm came off of the arm rest thing. The furniture in the bedroom was all like, it was just obvious that it was just secondhand stuff that he went to some thrift store and just picked up. So that's basically all he did, is he purchased property, he purchased a house, and then he filled it up with like secondhand furniture, and he's renting it. Okay, now from his perspective, you know, can't go wrong, right? Although, like I said previously, if it were me, like, I would not want strangers in and out of my house all the time. And let me circle back to that about security and all that as well. But let's get back on track here for you as the renter, right? As the guest. So anyway, so I was there for like 2 weeks, and it was the cheapest one that met my needs, that wasn't a camper in the whole state. And after the taxes and fees and everything, it still was almost $800 for 2 weeks, okay? I could be renting that room for $800 a month on a month-to-month or 6-month or 12-month lease and have it be a stable residential home. But because it is what it is, these people are able to rent these rooms out by the night, just like a motel or hotel, and that's what they're doing because they can get more money that way. And so it sucks because people like you and I who need a place to live, that stuff is now off the market in terms of just finding a place to live to rent. It's off the market because they're basically listing it as like a motel hotel. So to me, that's very, very aggravating. Now, what else can we talk about? So the place that I was at in the camper, technically there was a key that I was given for the camper. And he lived out more so in like kind of farmland area, that guy. And, you know, he just openly said that, you know, he doesn't lock his doors, this, that, and the other. Now, I grew up out in the country, okay? I grew up out in the woods, out in the boondocks, at the Jersey Shore, or in the Jersey Shore area, okay? And yeah, you know, that is kind of the mentality of people out in the country. But see, that's going to be a major problem. That's something that I foresee is, you know, when the crap hits the fan, these Airbnb people, especially the ones out in the country, like, how do these hosts know that these people who have previously stayed there aren't going to show back up on your property and just waltz right into your home because you don't lock your doors and, you know, blah, blah, blah. So that's their problem, whatever, but that's something that occurred to me. Also, you know, for me, now, we all have our different personalities and interests and whatever, but, you know, I'm an introvert, and I'm very protective of my space, and I like to have a sanctuary. I like my home to be a sanctuary, and so I personally would not want a bunch of strangers in and out on a constant basis. You know, just having roommates is bad enough, you know. We all have done it because we need to survive and whatever, and it saves money, but even having roommates is a little encroaching on one's personal space, you know. But these people are just tunnel vision on money, 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 and so they will have people in and out on a nightly basis. And that's a lot of work too, you know, to have to change the sheets and all that on like every day sometimes. To me, that'd be way too much invasion of my privacy, number one, and number two, just too much high maintenance, just too much work. You know, I don't change my own sheets on a daily basis. You know what I mean? Like that's a lot of freaking work. Now, the second place I stayed at the last 2 weeks, the guy had a lockbox outside the front door. And yeah, there was a code, but it was one set of keys. And you were supposed to, you know, put the code in, get the key, open the door, put the key back in the lockbox, lock the lockbox, and you were supposed to do that every single time that you entered the house. And I guess technically when you left the house, you were supposed to get the key out, lock the door behind you, put the key back, okay? One, that's a pain in the ass. Excuse me. That's a pain in the butt. And that can lead to some problems. Like, there was another guest upstairs. That girl that was there the last few days that I was there, oh, she was so annoying. She would play her flute all day and just, oh, got on my nerves. But I went out, came back, opened the lockbox, and the key was gone because she took it with her. So that's another thing with Airbnb is how things are operating. The instructions may not be there, and even if they are there, people don't read, people don't follow instructions. So just little things that I thought I would share, just for your information, for future reference. If you find yourself in any kind of situation where you might be looking at Airbnb. So, looking at, like, to compare and contrast with, like, motels and hotels, especially if you have a pet and you're trying to save money, like I've said before, Motel 6 really does seem to be the best option for someone that has a pet because they don't charge extra pet fees. However, most of the Hotel 6s are pretty grungy, pretty skeevy. They have roaches. I only encountered bed bugs once, and it was in a Super 8. It wasn't in a Motel 6, but you never know. The one I'm in right now seems very new and nice and clean. There's no bugs. So, hallelujah for that. But yeah, just what I'm learning is that Airbnb is basically, there's a bunch of spaces where people could be living long term, and instead the hosts are renting it out on a nightly basis. And so that takes it off the market for people who are looking for a home to rent, a space to rent, whether it's a bedroom or an apartment or whatever. What else? I'm sure there's more that I'm forgetting right now, but that's the general, like, scoop. So yeah, it kind of upsets me. I find it aggravating, like, there's so many spaces. Like, if there's tons of Airbnb spaces, and those are spaces that people could be renting as a home long term, and instead the price is jacked up for a nightly price, and it just pisses me off, honestly. It is what it is. But yeah, these people more and more are getting into this mindset of, I'll be an Airbnb host, and they rent out every possible space they can think of, just so that they can make money. And from their perspective, obviously it makes sense. Make as much money as you can to pay off your debt, or not work, or both, or whatever, but in terms of the housing market, it is making it worse. It makes it really, really worse. So if there's any afterthoughts, I'll put it in the description box below, but I just thought I'd give you a little FYI regarding Airbnb. Oh yeah, right. So, like, in terms of those of us who are introverts, just personal space. Yeah. So, like, I had on, like, the, like, main floor, I had the bedroom and a detached bathroom, and I was allowed to put my food in the refrigerator. And, like, the ad for my room said that I was allowed to heat up food or boil water for tea, but not allowed to do full meal preparation. Meanwhile, the girl upstairs, who that room was priced a little bit higher, she was allowed to do a full meal prep. And so she hung out in the living room all the time. She had friends over. She was acting like she was living there long term. She was preparing meals, playing her flute all the time. And so for me as an introvert, it drove me freaking nuts, okay? Now, not that you're not going to hear some noise when you stay at a motel or a hotel, but, like, it's not going to be that bad where, like, you're technically in, like, the same space, you know what I mean? Like, I felt as an introvert that I couldn't even leave my bedroom to go get a drink of my beverage that was in the kitchen refrigerator because she was out there with her guests making a meal and so on and so forth. You get what I'm saying? Like, so you got to be mindful if you're going to try to rent an Airbnb, go to the host's profile and see if he's renting out other spaces, because if he is and you're an introvert and you like to have your privacy, that could be an issue for you. Because yeah, this girl was driving me nuts. I felt like I was trapped in my room. I felt like I couldn't leave because she was always out there, and then even when she was up in her bedroom, she's sitting there playing the flute all freaking day. Like no, like quiet. And what was funny is the room that I was renting, like it was titled quiet room, you know, like, yeah, right, quiet. So just things to consider, you know. Again, yeah, if you're going to compare and contrast with like a motel, hotel, usually hotels are quiet and more upscale. Motels, Motel 6s and so forth, yeah, you might have some people like outside your door making noise, and yeah, the walls can be paper thin at times and whatever, you know. There's no guarantee of, you know, no noise or whatever, but yeah, that's something to consider if you're an introvert, is just like the privacy thing and the noise thing and just all of that. Now on the pro side, you know, I was able to do laundry there. I even brought in my blanket, and my cat got her hair all over it, so I washed the blanket, like, so that was nice. But at the same token, because this guy also worked and he was constantly washing sheets and everything, he would leave stuff in the washing machine and it was growing mold. And so I had to clean his washing machine and wash it out twice with vinegar, which I didn't even tell him. I'm still debating whether to tell him. I'm probably not going to tell him, but you know, and so like you got to compare and contrast that with like a laundromat. You know, is a laundromat better? You know, do they have mold and mildew? You know, you could argue these things. Trying to think of like what else. And cleaning, you know, most people just don't know how to clean and whatever. So I mean, that's just whatever. I think that's most of it. Like I said, if I have any afterthoughts, I'll put more stuff in the description box below, but that's the general gist. I just thought I would come on here and just kind of put that on the table for y'all, because I know as time goes on here in the tribulation, many people are going to be facing homelessness and just difficulty regarding housing and so forth. So I just thought I would kind of give you a heads up and FYI. But yeah, there's lots of places out there, but instead of them being available to rent long term, people are price gouging through Airbnb on a nightly basis. So yeah. All right.